So, this is my behind the scenes. Don't hold it against me because I may make a mistake or two, but it is what it is. But I have Cory Mills. I mean, come on. This is going to be awesome and amazing and great. So, we're going to go in. You're a combat veteran. Do you have, what was your rank?
So I was a non-commissioned officer when I was
Ooh,
in. So we joke around, but we always say that these are the people who work for a living. It's not like the rest of the officers who just,
it's the truth.
it is the truth. Non-commissioned
You,
officers
you
get it
ain't got
done.
to tell
It's the
me.
backbone of the
You
military.
ain't got to tell
Bottom
me.
line.
I already know. I already know. All right. You ready? I just need you to make sure you speak in the microphone, that you're
I
comfortable.
am
You
ready to go.
good? Can you see you? See that you? We're live. Okay. All right. You ready?
You are now tuned in to Today with Pastor Jay on WNZF News Radio, where we discuss inspiring and informative news. And now here's your host, Pastor Jerlyn Denny.
Good morning. Good morning. Wake up and good morning. It is a good, beautiful, and great day to be alive. It really and truly is to be on this side of the dirt. I have a phenomenal guest this morning. I'm so excited to have met him and to introduce him to you for those who don't know who he is, and that is Cory Mills. He's a U.S. Army combat veteran, a congressional candidate. Congressional candidate.
Yes,
How
ma'am.
do you go from combat veteran to congressional candidate?
It's actually an easy transition if you think about it. I mean, look, when you're in the military, you are sworn to an oath, and that oath is to protect our Constitution for all people, all Americans, and that's protected against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Well, that doesn't change just because you step out of uniform. The problem that we have right now is that you have too many people who are actually in Congress who are not fighting for those rights. They're not about public service; they're about self-service, and that's where it's becoming an issue right now. Is because we don't have people who are willing to fight for those things that we hold so dearly to us: our freedoms, our liberties, the things that we take pride in. I mean, that our conservative values, even that are being attacked, our faith, which is being attacked. I mean, all of these things that we were willing to defend in uniform, I'm still going to defend today.
All right, so let's talk about your family. You married,
I am married.
kids.
Yep, I am married. I have two kids, 7 and 17. So
Ooh,
perfect
that's a
troublemakers.
huge.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a gap there, but we're actually thinking we're contemplating now. Actually, trying to have we want a little girl. That's
Okay.
one of the things. Like a girl just lights up the house, and my wife's always wanted a little girl. So that's certainly something that we're talking about and discussing now is potentially adding a third to the family.
So, which area of Florida are you residing in? How long you've been a Florida resident?
So I was born and raised in Auburndale, Florida, which is right there in Central Florida. Been here my whole life. Graduated from Lake Region High School right here in Central Florida. Went to Florida State College right here in Jacksonville. So been in the country my whole life, with the exception of military service, and then also working with the government. I was a Trump appointee in the DoD as a SEC advisor, SecDef advisor
We
there.
will talk about that.
But yeah, so born and raised Florida native, 5 generations of Floridians, and just trying to make sure that I'm taking care of our state, taking care of Central Florida.
So, you describe yourself as a husband, a father, a patriot, combat veteran, entrepreneur, foreign policy expert,
Oh yes.
and true American conservative. What is a true American conservative to you?
Well, I think conservatism is something that's been utilized, but it's not been properly, explained and understood to people. To have conservative values, to be a fiscal conservative, meaning that we're not looking at trying to drive up our current debt ratios. Being able to get control of our GDP to debt ratio is a big thing to help us to not try and print out more money and increase inflation, things that are hitting Americans today. To conserve all the Judeo-Christian values that we were built upon, to conserve and preserve our constitutional freedoms and liberties. I mean, these are things that we shouldn't even have to label as I'm conservative or I'm liberal. This is just being an American. That's the worst part, is we're now down to where every single thing has to be put in a box. Everything has to be labeled. Everything has to be categorized. At the end of the day, everyone should want the exact same things as every single conservative want, which is just to protect our constitutional freedoms and liberties and to be able to live as Americans.
As a Trump appointee, how do you get that position? I mean, everyone, especially not everyone, but there's a lot of people here in Flagler and around the nation that adore and love Trump. And then there's some that hate him.
Well, I mean, again, I think there's not a single person in the world that doesn't have somebody
Well, I
that
think
loves
right
somebody
about
that
right
hate him,
now,
right?
everybody's loving Trump.
Oh, everybody's missing. Listen, people's missing. They're missing that $1.89 a gallon gas and mean tweets. They will take that over. I just heard yesterday that in California, for example, they're at $7+ a gallon.
Wow.
I mean, that is unheard of. I mean, I can't even imagine. I mean, think about this. You're now having to make the decision, do I fill my gas or do I pay the additional 20+% inflation rates on my milk and my bread and my food?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is becoming to the point where you're almost disincentivizing people to even go to work because they're saying, I'm paying almost the same amount just to drive to work back and forth as I am my actual paycheck itself. I mean, this is one of the issues that I used to talk about in my company all the time, which is regarding like childcare.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I completely think that childcare is one of those things that we need to pay more attention to because, you know, we have mothers who don't go and get back into the workforce simply because they're like, well, if I make $1,000 a month as an example, and I'm paying $1,000 a month in childcare, why not raise my own child? And I totally agree with that. And so, like, that's one of those things that I've discussed even in my own businesses. I own a company right here in Perry, Florida, as well. So just outside of Tallahassee.
Let's talk about your companies and what you
Sure.
do. What your other job?
So
Other than being on television all the time, because I just saw you on Fox News yesterday, FYI.
Again, I do a lot on foreign policy stuff. I've been a foreign policy advisor actually for many years and have been doing media for many, many years. I mean, especially when it comes to Middle Eastern policy. I mean, I spent 7+ years in Iraq, 3 years Afghanistan, time in Ukraine, Pakistan, Kosovo, you name it. So my company, which is Paysum Solution and Paysum Defense, as well as for Amtech Less Lethal, our job is to essentially help to support and serve our law enforcement communities. That is our biggest and most like prideful thing. We support over 193 law enforcement departments across the country, to include providing less lethal training, correctional facilities, helping with less lethal instructor courses so that people understand that, you know, we don't need to escalate things past a certain level potentially, but also just helping to serve to allow them to get onto the ranges, to be able to train and to perfect their craft, because, you know, we rely so heavily on our law enforcement. And I'm a huge supporter to back our men and women in blue because, you know, these are people who put their lives at risk every single day. And that's why I was even more honored when I think it was about a year and a half ago or so, I became an honorary member of the Taylor County Sheriff's Department because, you know, we had literally been just donating range time at no cost, donating what we could, you know, during the 2020 riots, as an example. I mean, we were getting supplies to Minneapolis or Baltimore or New York or wherever because people were completely without anything and they didn't have emergency budgets to back it up. So, you know, it's organizations, you know, I tell people all the time that I realize that I can no longer be on the battlefield anymore, but if I can at least be on the sidelines and still feel that I'm making a difference and I'm actually still helping people, that's what matters to me.
Well, I'm just going to let you know that America is a battlefield in case you didn't know.
Well, politics is a battlefield.
It is a battlefield. Let's talk about religious freedom. I mean, during COVID, they were shutting churches down.
It's unbelievable. I mean, look.
Who does that?
Well, apparently the left does. And here's the bigger thing of it.
Now, is this a left or right thing?
I think it very much is. And I think that, you know, what I look at on this situation is that we look at the states where this was actually going on. And they were, you can't ignore the fact that it was in a Democrat or a blue state where these things were occurring. But I mean, think about what they were doing. They're attacking our faith. They're attacking organizations and places of worship. They were putting fines on cars of people who showed up to have a place of worship, but yet they were allowing strip clubs, Walmarts, all these other things, abortion clinics. These were remaining open.
Did you know abortion clinics were open here in Florida at a time when you couldn't even get surgeries?
I know.
But abortion clinics were open.
I know. But again, this is a direct attack on faith. And what they're trying to do, in my opinion, is that they want to eliminate this idea of one nation under God. They want to separate religion so that they can act with this immorality, so they can act without any types of accountability or any belief that there's a greater, person that they have to answer to, so they can make these decisions they're making to destroy the nation, so they can make the decision to divide people, because, this is the goal all along, is to try and divide the nation. It's the old saying, united we stand, divided we fall. And they figured that out, and they're actually capitalizing on it.
What about those that don't believe that? They don't believe in God or don't believe in all this stuff that you're saying. They're going, oh, well, Cory, that's for you, but that's not for me.
Well, I guess the thing that I tell my wife is we talk about the different faiths as well as for even those who claim to be atheists. And I said, here's the problem, though. I said, I can almost guarantee that every single person's last breath will be for God. And, it's one of those things where it's hard to deny something. Everyone wants to talk about the idea of something that they can believe in, something that's tangible, something that they can grasp onto, and that's what they believe. Well, faith is about bringing people together. Faith is about belief. Faith is about having us, answer to a greater calling. And I don't think that anybody can ignore that at the end of the day. You can say that you're an atheist and that you don't have true belief, but we all know, at the end of the day, the last breath is going to be for God.
When I think about our founding fathers and the faith of our founding fathers,
That's right.
That's how America grew.
That's exactly how we arose
Bill
on
of
the
Rights.
Judeo-Christian
Yes,
beliefs.
Absolutely. All right, well, we got to take a break. We're going to talk more about that. Don't go anywhere. Don't touch that dial. You're listening to Today with Pastor Jay. All right. So how much time we have? So I can kind of halfway monitor it in my head.
12 to 13.
Okay. All right. I'll monitor it. What is a topic that's just so near and dear? We want to talk about what's going on in Ukraine.
We can talk about Ukraine. We can talk about, just again, that whole foreign policy realm right now is such a big deal. Nah, he's fine.
Okay. All right.
No, just what's happening. I think people need to understand that intrinsically, foreign policy and domestic policy are intertwined, and we can't unravel them.
We'll talk about that. I'll ask you that.
Because that's impacting us here.
Right.
Our gas prices is what? As a result of bad domestic and foreign policies.
And then I want to know what your platform is, too. Okay. You ready? Welcome back. Welcome back. You're listening to Today with Pastor Jay, and I have Cory Mills. Cory Mills, millsforflorida.com. Go to millsforflorida.com. Check him out. You get to hear all this and know all this stuff about him. So let's talk about foreign policy and domestic policy. Most people don't think foreign policy affects them, whatever that's over there. And most people aren't even paying attention to domestic policy. Let's be real. How do you think they intertwine and that they work together?
Well, I think that we have to acknowledge the fact that it's intrinsically linked. We cannot separate domestic and foreign policy any longer. And the reason why is because you have to look at the fact that America is one of the biggest importers of goods. So when we have
Which
issues,
I hate, by the way.
Oh, absolutely.
Pause right
look,
there. I hate that.
I do too. And this is why I'm so big about the idea that we have to get back to not just oil independency, but to increasing domestic production. Domestic production prevents us from having any future supply chain issues. And let me tell you, there are some issues that China is trying to create for us. So, for example, China has linked itself directly to Russia. There is a Russian-China link that is basically called the Great Superpower Resurgence. We used to have America and China and Russia. Right. The problem is that America is not a part of that Great Superpower Resurgence. Mm-hmm. So what's happening is China and President Xi has this idea that he wants to create the old supply chain Silk routes, but he wants to do it maritime-based, and it's called the One Road, One Belt Initiative. And in order to do that, he has to expand the Eurasian borders so he can take over Eurasia, he can take over Africa, and he can take over Oceania. That allows him to have a bigger supply chain control and essentially continue his economic resource warfare against America. So when we're seeing this expansion of Russia, this is to expand the Eurasian border for China. That's why whenever we were threatening after they had already invaded in 2014, we're going to put these bans on you, we're going to do this. Look.
What's up with the ban?
Listen, the bottom line is that the sanctions that we put on Russia in the past has done nothing more than strengthen them. And I'll tell you why I say that. Okay. We're talking about now the ideas of us wanting to do domestic production. Mm-hmm. Well, when you're sanctioned, you can't get any goods from external. What are you forced to do? Well, you're forced to produce domestically. Right. So right now, Russia actually overproduces for their community where they're now exporting goods. So their GDP is higher than their current debt ratio. So they're actually able to sustain. And then when we threaten and we say, we're going to cancel MasterCard and Visa, China just steps right up and says, hey, don't worry about it. We'll be your piggy bank. Mm-hmm. So we have to understand that this impacts America because now we talk about the fact that in October 2017, we were only importing about 16,000 barrels from Russia. You fast forward that to today, in 2021 in October in that same month, we were already at 217,000 barrels. So now when you have these conflicts internationally and you're talking about policy that's going to impact these countries, you have to look now how that impacts you domestically. And what is the Biden administration doing? This is the worst part.
What is the Biden administration doing?
They have literally strengthened and emboldened Russia. And now they're running from one dictator to another. They're saying, all right, you're right. We're going to ban Russian oil. Now we're going to go ahead and start talking to Maduro over in Venezuela. We're going to start talking to Iran about this, the largest state sponsor of terrorism. Why isn't the answer to go ahead and start the Keystone XL pipeline, start producing domestically, open up all of our actual fuel and oil production at its highest levels, and start looking at how we become oil sustainable here in America, not relying on one dictator or another. And that's the issue. They're ignoring domestic production for international trade.
And not that you have the answer to this question, but how long will it take for us to be able to produce oil in America? Now, I'm hearing it's going to be maybe 1 to 2 years, but I think it's worth it for us to go ahead and open up the pipeline and just get things going.
Well, I think the first step is certainly to go ahead and open the faucet. You know, we need to stop saying, okay, we're only going to produce at 70% or 80% production rates. We need to go to 100% production rates. And even if Keystone XL does, let's just say, take 2 to 3 years to build, well, you're missing the big piece of that, which is to build.
That's right.
Which means that people are employed, people are working, our economy is still getting money to circulate within here, and we're moving towards our oil independency. Because sitting here playing the what if game, well, maybe we'll
and
try.
running around asking for favors from other nations and countries. It
we're
weakens
begging
America.
OPEC. We're begging OPEC right now.
It weakens America, and I don't
100%.
like. We're at the mercy of another country,
We are the
of another
weakest,
nation.
national security wise, we are the weakest we've ever been. I mean, you look at the fact that during the Biden administration in this 1 year, Korea launched more missiles for testing in this year than they did during the entire Trump administration. They now are testing hypersonic missiles, which is actually a technology from China. You have China, who now has a larger naval fleet than America. So sorry, U.S. Navy, you're no longer on top. And now they're threatening Taiwan. They're they're continuing to build up in the South China Sea. You've got Iran and their Houthis in Yemen, and the Kataib Hezbollah in Iraq, and all the other proxy militias who are now attacking our allies who were signed up to the Abraham Accord under the Trump administration. You got Russia invading. You've got China continuing this expansion. I mean, there is not a single scenario, not to mention our open borders. I mean, this is the bigger part.
Don't get
We're
me
worried
started
about
on the
9,000
borders.
miles away. We can't fix 900 miles away. So you look at everything that's going on right now, from supply chain breakdown to inflation rates going through the roof, over $30+ trillion in debt. We have zero capability on oil independency. We have wars going on in areas that were at one point completely isolated. And here's the other point. Russia's invaded Ukraine twice in 8 years. Who was in office both times?
Okay.
Joe Biden.
Okay. All right. And this is why you're running for Congress. I'm taking
We
it.
have to look. My biggest platform is this. I'm a constitutionalist. I always tell people that I'm a conservative first. I'm a Republican second. Republicans to me, it's just a conservative. It's a vessel.
Actually, you're a
It's
Christian
a
first.
repository.
I see it.
Well,
in
that's
you.
absolutely
That's a
going to
given.
be. Yeah,
that's a given.
Listen,
That's
I'm
in you.
deep rooted in my faith.
That's who you are.
That's just who I am. But at the end of the day, though, conservatism is just something that basically protects our constitutionality and our values. So, I believe in the right to bear arms. I believe in the right for medical choice. We don't need these unconstitutional mask mandates. We don't need to be locking people out of their businesses. We don't need to stop people from being able to go to work. We need to incentivize this. We don't need to be weaponizing, stimulus bills to try and prevent jobs from being able to open. Look, I want to get back to common sense legislation. That's what it's about right now. We have this weird shift in partisanship where one runs extreme left, one runs extreme right, but it leaves out the bulk of Americans who are in the middle who just want to live their lives and be free. And that's what this is about, is getting back to being a constitutionalist, protecting our values, protecting our Second Amendment rights, which actually defends our First Amendment rights, ensuring that we don't have technocrats who are censoring people to where we can get our voices out. I mean, this is about restoring America's voice, restoring our constitutional freedoms and liberties, and actually being Americans once again.
You said something about our Second Amendment right, protecting our First Amendment right.
Absolutely.
I was listening to a pastor not that long ago, and he said, come in here and mess with me if you want to about my First Amendment. I'll show you my Second Amendment.
But that's exactly what. Well, think about this, though. Look through history. Every single nation which has been disarmed, where are they at today? I mean, you watch this in Nazi Germany, you watch this in Australia, you watch this in Canada, and it allows totalitarian governments and tyrannical rule to basically exist. We have our Second Amendment rights. One, I believe it's a God-given inalienable right because we have a right to protect our families, protect our homes, protect our businesses. But at the end of the day, it's so that we do not ever incur that tyrannical rule ever again. It is so that we have a well-armed militia, because remember our Constitution states all enemies, foreign and domestic.
When you talk about God-given rights, I think people get confused because they're focused on the rights given to us by government.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the mindset that I'm seeing in this nation.
It's definitely
that people
a mind
are
conditioning.
waiting for the government to do something,
That's
give them
right.
something, tell them what to do, where to go, what to say, but come on.
Well, that's why I loved when President Trump and Secretary Pompeo were actually trying to put in something called the inalienable rights, and that was what it was really about. And also, they're putting something in that's called 1776, which basically countered the 1619,
Right.
theory. So
Right.
because here's the deal: we don't need to be indoctrinating our children.
Oh, don't
We
get
don't
me
need to be
started on that.
labeling. I'm a parent.
Right.
The fact that I can't voice my opinion on what my kids are learning, and I'm labeled a domestic terrorist if I basically don't agree with a teachers union, this woke union. This is nonsense. Look, I want to get back to what's important with kitchen table issues: parental rights. Parental rights are more important than a teachers union or anyone else. We don't need to have critical race theory to try and indoctrinate our children.
Why are we teaching racism?
Correct.
Or I should say, promoting racism to
Exactly
teach
what it's doing.
racism.
That's exactly what
They're
it
using
makes no-
racism to teach racism.
But then if you call it out though, then you're a domestic terrorist because you're
okay.
disagreeing with it. That's how the DOJ labels it.
Okay,
under
well,
the Biden
we've got to take
administration.
another break. Don't go anywhere. You're listening Today with Pastor Jay, and guess what? We are awake and not woke.
That's right.
That might work.
We're
Okay.
going to talk about how government is going to build I'm going to talk about these gas prices. And
He was just talking
I was
about
just
that.
talking
Don't
about
even
that.
get started
Who's
on that.
about to pay all this?
Okay.
Taxpayers. They're about to
You mean on top of the $30 trillion plus for that down payment on the Green New Deal?
Because here's
See,
the-
this is all
Don't
I-
get him started. Because it'll go. How much time I have left?
All I've been is a foreign policy
3 minutes.
analyst, and
We
I
only
was-
got
I was
3
part of the
minutes.
Trump administration.
So let me get my 3 minutes.
Let's get
in.
it.
We just got 3
I'll
minutes.
speak to you as a commissioner and why your role's so important.
Okay.
sir.
So we have 3 minutes left.
All
What
right.
is it that you would like to say that you want to get out? So we ended talking about schools and teachers and all this other kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So let's come in
Let's-
on
let's-
that.
let's go back to the
and
kitchen
let's-
table
and let's talk about
issues.
the kitchen table issues. Okay.
Yeah.
You ready? I want to give you a thank you and a shout out to Steve Derriere, thefloridamortgagecenter.com. Thank you for sponsoring Today with Pastor Jay. Now, Cory, that was a mouthful. And we just ended my last break with awake, not woke.
I love
You're
that.
a parent, and it's true. We're awake. We're not woke.
I love that.
What's happening with our schools? Our education system is completely torn down. I mean, I don't know if you know this. Rebecca Friedrich, she helped get rid of the teacher unions because they're horrible. She has a new movie that's coming out, Whose Children Are They? It's going to be airing on March the 14th in over 750 theaters nationwide, talking about that, the indoctrination of our teachers and our children based on what's behind these teacher unions. It's
Right.
crazy. Now, I'm saying hashtag defund the schools. If I had to do it all over again, I have 7 children, I would say pull your child out
See,
of school.
I think that the
I'm
money should
sorry.
follow the child. And
I
here's the
do.
bottom line, because if the money follows the child, right now, these schools can basically do whatever they want, implement whatever they want, because they basically say, okay, well, I'm going to get your money if you live within this diameter, this radius, or this geocode. The bottom line is that if the parents made the choice, hey, I'm going to select the school based on the educational curriculum, the system, and what's best for my child, and the money follows the child as a tax credit or however you wanted to associate it, watch how many schools no longer exist. Watch how many other schools say, hey, guess what? We can't pay our bills. We need to start changing our curriculum and focusing on what the parents want. But the bottom line is the way the school system is set up right now. This is why I love Byron Donalds and his wife. They are all about this idea. So was President Trump on school choice. I think that right there in itself would already be the first step to correcting a lot of these school boards or this wokeism that's basically indoctrinating our children, because at that point you could say, hey, guess what? My money's not going to your school anymore from what you're teaching. We have in Orlando, as an example, in Orange County, you have literally pornography in
don't
some
get
of
me
these
started.
libraries.
Look, don't even
what
get
we're
me
seeing
started.
right now.
Don't get me
it's
started on
insane.
that. But you said medical real quick. Let's talk about the medical tyranny that's coming up in our nation,
yes.
where vaccine passports are our currency now, practically, in some areas and in some states. That's crazy.
I'll tell you something. I kind of suspected this was going to occur in the beginning. Remember when they came out with those CDC vaccine cards and they were telling you, hey, it's a shot and a booster. Well, I was always noticing the fact that there was 5 or 6 or 7 lines that was always in those vaccination cards. They knew from the beginning this wasn't going to be a 2-shot deal. They knew for a fact that they were going to utilize this to basically rule with medical tyranny. And Fauciism, which, thank God, Governor DeSantis, who's a tremendous leader, has defeated in the state of Florida. But the bottom line is that this is tearing apart the nation. I mean, this is now having people to say, my religious rights are being violated because I have to choose to either take this vaccination, which I don't agree with, or put food on the table for my family. I mean, that should never have been an option whatsoever. I believe in medical choice. The vaccination exists
right.
so that
what
if you want it,
What I do with my body is
exactly.
between me, my Lord and
that is
Savior, and my
100%
doctor. It has
on
nothing
you.
to do with government.
That's right. That's right. You want to take the vaccination? That's why it's available for you. You don't want to take the vaccination? That's your choice as well. We live in a nation of freedoms. You want your child to go to a certain school because of their curriculum, or a different school because of their curriculum?
Or
you should have that right.
You
Or
should have that right.
homeschool. That's why homeschool is becoming so popular right now, is because parents are scared of what their children are being taught in these schools. And I am as well as a parent. That's one of the other reasons I run, for the simple fact that when I die, when I have to go to my maker, I have to be able to answer and say, all the skills that you gave me, all the capabilities, all the things that you taught me, this is what I did with it. Because if I leave America in a worse position than what I found it when I was born and raised here, I failed as a leader, I failed as a patriot, I failed as an American, and I failed as a father. And I refuse to have that failure.
Well, I want to thank you again for coming. You are welcome here any day,
I
anytime.
would love to come
How
back.
about that?
Please.
Any day, anytime you can come, and we'll learn and glean a little bit more from you. Thank you so very much.
My
All right,
pleasure.
guys, you know what I say? Yesterday's gone. Tomorrow's not promised. What are you going to do today? Today, you're going to go to millsforflorida.com. Make sure you donate and support Cory Mills. So we need to get him in Congress and stop all this foolishness. All right, now we are awake and not woke. God bless you. Have a great day.